got 25 minutes. We got to go.
Hey!
What?
Happy Wednesday, everyone.
Happy New Year, everybody. First show of the year. What is going on? Say that, nation.
Happy New Year. Oh, so excited. And we're in season 3. It's just like this year is going to be a great year. I can feel it already. Like it's just coming.
Say that.
Everything that we've all wanted, it's coming to each and every single one of you.
Receive that. If you receive that, let's throw some fire in the chat. I love it. Happy Wednesday.
No.
All
Awesome.
right.
Well, I'm super excited for what we got for you guys today.
Yes.
So, are you ready, Winston? Should I do the drum roll?
Yes, please.
Can having conversations about racism and anti-racism help grow your business?
I love this.
This is a great question.
Yeah. And let's be real, people. In the current climate, I think and I know we're international, but in American, I think in a lot of places, race has become a very big, or I guess there's a lot being pulled back in that arena or curtains with stuff going on there. So I'm definitely excited to jump into this today, but it is not just us. We have someone who's going to be joining us, Janelle.
Yes, super excited to introduce you all. He is a new friend of mine, and I'm really excited to have you guys hear from his wisdom and his experience. He is a father, a husband, a burgeoning entrepreneur, and he is, I would say, one of the most he just has a voice and a spirit about him that is so helpful and communicative when talking about the subjects. I couldn't think of a better person to help us, unpack everything that's involved with this topic. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome CJ Broderick.
Hey, man. Our next guest.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Oh, we are super excited to have you with us, CJ. And I will just go ahead and talk about the pink elephant in the room. You and Winston have the same last name.
I know.
I'm sure I'm not the only person who's noticing this. So the question is, are you guys related?
Like maybe 17 generations ago,
I know. No, we legit. But backstage, we were talking about it. I was like, dude, are you Jamaican? Are you West Indian? And then my next was, are you British? Is your family British? No, but he has an amazing story that he's going to share with us. So, dude, welcome to the show. We're so thankful for you to be on with us, brother. And you got 25 minutes on that clock.
25 minutes on the clock. All right. So before we get into getting into the question itself, talk to us a little bit about your consultancy, right? So Equity Paradigm is the business that you have where you consult people about anti-racism. You created seminars and workshops, and you've been doing really, really amazing work. But how does someone even get into this, right? How did you make the decision that this is something that I want to do? And I know that you didn't make that decision alone. So I want to hear that story about how you and your wife decided to go ahead and make this something that you were going to do as a business.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I've been an entrepreneur probably since 2002 or something like that. I think 2000, I started my first business. And when I got married, I probably had 2-3 businesses at that time. And I always knew that I wanted to expose my wife to entrepreneurship. And early on in our marriage, I think it was January of 2017 or something like that, we said, hey, we're gonna start a company. And so I said, well, I've done this a bunch of times. Wife, you're gonna start a company, right? And I'll support it. And so we went through the process, started a company, and we started trying to figure out exactly what we're going to do and offer through this company, right? Right around then, my wife had transitioned from the for-profit world to the nonprofit world, and we were thinking about doing some kind of business consultancy because we felt that we had a lot to offer there as a team. But then every day, my wife would be talking about race and racism. Every day, we'd be at lunch, we'd be at dinner, we'd be somewhere, and she would always be. And I said, "Well, babe, this is all you ever talk about. Why don't you? Why did this be the company? And that's how we started. I remember her first workshop she did. Um, a colleague of hers had seen her talk about race and racism somewhere, and said, "Hey, can you do something for this conference?" And she did, and it was amazing. And I got to watch her, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, what am I watching right now?" It was kind of one of those things. It's like,
Oh.
yeah, and so that's basically how I started. It really started from her passion, and I knew that we could create an offering from, and if we can align it with her passion, we'll be well off. And so that's the beginnings of it.
And Winston has done us a favor to bring up the website. So if any of you are interested in having the equity paradigm work with, with your company, with your organization, this is the website. It's scrolling across the bottom. You can see here all of the different workshops and trainings that are offered. This is super awesome.
Thank you.
So about that, right? Like, let's talk a little bit about, like, now you've decided, okay, this is going to be our business, right? Like, this is the thing that we're going to focus on. But how does someone even do that? Like, how does someone say, like, okay, I want to, like, make talking about this difficult topic into a business? Like, how do you, like, create a business strategy around that?
Yeah, that's interesting. And the interesting thing about it is that prior to starting this company, that's what I typically do, right? I typically try to figure out how to turn ideas into businesses, right? Into things that you can make a living off of. When I finished college, I decided that there was too much outside of corporate America and outside of a job that I wanted to focus on doing, that I just knew that I could not be happy if I was just working somewhere for the next 30, 40 years, right? And so I had to go through this process myself many times to say, okay, how am I going to turn my passion, my hobbies into a viable business, viable way of living, right? And so by the time I got married, by the time I got to this point where we were going through this iteration with my wife's company, it was something very, very familiar to me. I said, okay, let's figure out what you love to do. Let's figure out how to package it, right? And then let's figure out how to market that package. And so we went through this process of saying, is there value in what we're offering? And at the time, because of all of the social unrest, all the things that were happening, unfortunately, that have been happening for years, but now because of technology, we're being public, right? And we're now all in the public domain. It was like you couldn't escape it. And so everybody would talk about it, but not everybody had the skill set that my wife had and the understanding. So her background, since she had been doing adult learning for a large nonprofit, right?
Okay.
And so she knew how to communicate difficult topics to adult learners, right? And so the way in which she was talking about race and racism, it was new, it was different, it was refreshing. People were like, well, wait a minute, I'm having a different conversation. So she was able to create these packages and these sessions, and initially that just changed. It was different, and it was so well received that we were able to quickly assign appropriate value to it. And I think that can be one of the most difficult things early on, is how you assign value and how you shop it. But it seemed because of the national the national things that were happening, it was made the connection very, very easy.
Can I jump in? I have a question, and I love where this is going. And you brought up something that many people that are watching, they have aspirations of obviously creating a business, and that inspiration that you talk about, or recognizing the skill like your wife has, is great to know. But when it does come to that point of, hey, now you have a business, It's not a hobby anymore. You're not out there doing it for free. Now let's talk logistics. What did you guys use as a strategy to come up with a number? Because to Janelle's point, if this is not something that I knew anything about before, so it's not like a product you get on a shelf, in a store. So how do you assign a value to a skill or a craft that you have?
Yeah, one of the interesting things I tell people all the time is that I help people that are entrepreneurs do their business plans and do their capability stack all the time, other than my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them, no one wants to be the first person to buy your product at market value. If you come to me and you say, "Hey, I do this," and I say, "Okay, well, who else can vouch for that you do this well?" And you go, "No, you're the first one." I'm like, no, I can't pay you for this, right? And so we knew early on that we had to build a marketplace for this offering, right? Although we knew that people were talking about it, we weren't sure who was paying for it, right, and what they're paying for it. And so we needed to find a way to get out there as service providers, right? And so strategically, we created a price point, and then that we thought was wildly affordable, right? And we stopped that the people that we know were having these conversations, right? And so we went from having one client to 10, right?
Wow.
Well, they had a wonderful time, and they learned a ton. And they were like, "Man, can you believe we got this for this price?"
Yeah.
And then we said, "Okay, now we have a portfolio of clients that we have referrals. Okay, now the price is going to this point." And then we slowly got to, where we felt comfortable we could make a living off of it. But then we also slowly got to the point where we felt comfortable that we also weren't overcharging, or even saying, "Oh, we're going to charge this amount." We felt comfortable with the fees So you slowly get there.
No, I love that.
Thank you for asking that, Winston, because I got a lot of that.
No,
and
I mean,
that could be that doesn't. It's not just this, right? Like this area, like that could be for so many other businesses. So that was truly helpful.
Yeah. But I love what the reason it came to me is I'm thinking, what's like we happen to be in a business model where we don't get to determine the price for what we do in our business. And again, a lot of people, you're in different you may start a brick and mortar. A lot of those prices and costs are set. You buy it for a certain amount, you want to make a profit. So that's easy. But when you're starting a company around a skill that's very unique to you, to me, it's like there are a lot of artists out there, but I often wonder when I see the price, I'm like, why does this guy think I should pay this for this? You know what I mean? And someone else doesn't do that. It's very interesting. And I wonder how many people, again, beyond inspiration to do this stuff, are sitting there thinking, well, I am going to have to charge. And how do I, what's the strategy in doing that? Because you're right. A lot of people, I think, price themselves out of the market incredibly early, because they do that. They're like, well, I should be getting this. And it's like, not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
There's an art to it for sure. There's an art to it. I was telling, I think a client or a mentee some other time, I said, there's an art to it. You can't, it's not always, mathematics. It's not always there. There really is an understanding of, nuanced understanding of how to enter the market. Some people, they love what they do so much that they forget that it needs to have a value attached to it. They have free all over things, and then you're programming your customer that this is free. So then you can ask them the next day, can you pay for this? So all of that is there's an art to it for sure.
I love the word you used earlier, package, in terms of taking what your wife had and then using your skill, applying to it, and it needed to be packaged because nobody just won't. You can. I think it's one of those things where you see people who are passionate, but you can't sell passion necessarily. It definitely has to be boxed and put in something that I can take home with me.
Right.
Yeah. But you were going to say something.
No, well, I was like, well, let's get into this question now, right? So this is the meat, right? Like the meat of the question. You have this package now where you're passionate about what you can serve to others, but how can having discussions about anti-racism help your business grow? Like because that's the thing, right? Like it doesn't have to be, I don't know, people think like, oh, well, this is like for schools or like for like hospitals or something like that, but it doesn't have to be. Like it can be for other businesses as well. So I would love to hear your insight on what you found since you've started doing this work.
Yeah, I mean, I think surprisingly, shockingly to me, I found it to be a wildly successful business, right? I wouldn't have, if we were sitting around 10 years ago talking about race and racism and how to give advice on it, I wouldn't have necessarily connected the dots there, right? Um, but I think there are opportunities. Everything is touched by race and racism, right? And so in this day and age society, where we're thinking about how to create more diverse, more inclusive, more equitable institution systems, it's everywhere, right? And so we've had an opportunity to create a really, really great business from that. But again, I wouldn't have necessarily thought that on site upon site. But I think the same goes for anyone's businesses, right? I think a lot of people like you all mentioned earlier have businesses that you can say, man, how would I monetize this? How can I grow this into a whatever your the definition of success of a business looks like? And sometimes it's a very, very small window to be able to look through to see, and sometimes you can see it, but sometimes you have to really and be able to find that window. And then the thing I'll say also is that I think many, many times um, you figure it out halfway through the journey, right? A lot of times we want to say, hey, I'm not going here unless I know exactly what all the turns are. But most times I find you figure it out in the middle of the journey. You've done half of the work, and you say, oh, I'm not sure. But then it just starts to click. You start to understand it more deeply, and then you start to realize, this is the avenue here.
That is so true for many things. We're like, what do you call it? Like we're like building the wings in the air. The plane is gone. We're like building it as we go. And so have you seen, like, since you've been working with different companies, institutions, organizations, have you seen that after you have had this work that you have found that they have become a more successful entity in themselves because you guys have worked with them?
Definitely, definitely. We always say that our goal is to create more equity conscious individuals, right? Our theory of change is that equitable systems and institutions begin with equity conscious individuals. So, you know, the analogy I'll give quickly is that you may have driven down a road or written down a road 100,000 times, but you never saw this building, this space that like had your name on it and said, Janelle, come here, enter here. This is and it's like sometimes after the work that we do is in helping make people more equity conscious, so that they're able to create these more equitable, more more diverse, more inclusive organizations, spaces that everyone can thrive in. And then they can also have a better understanding of how to, engage in those types of conversations, and not just those types of conversations that they find difficult and complex, but then other conversations that they find difficult and complex. So I think it really does strengthen a few different muscles that allows people to be able to be better individuals for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
That is so. Go ahead.
Well, no, one of the things I think about in terms of, I think you can go to a job and obviously learn a skill there, or go to school and learn a skill in that sense, and you can apply it to, a function of your life. But to me, what you guys do, you and your wife and your company, is teach people something that they can take outside of the workplace, or, of their place of business or work. Because I mean, in many cases, we're here in New York, so I would say a melting pot of different cultures and stuff like that. But I think specifically, if I think about like even what we do in network marketing, we have the opportunity to go out and talk to a variety of people, and you can have these people working on a team together. And I was wondering, just even as I'm listening to you talk about, like, how powerful would it be to have your team that you're building have these type of conversations? Because it is something where it's not a traditional company, so it's not like you got office hours to see people. This is one of those things where you really are having to help people learn to work together to build something that they've never maybe had an opportunity to. So I'm just thinking it's amazing that what you guys do is something that you can actually take outside of, again, just the maybe the four walls of your workplace or something.
For sure.
Or your virtual Zoom box now that we all live on,
Okay.
or we're going back to Zoom, I guess.
True.
Yeah.
And I'll just add to that too, because think about like job satisfaction, right? Like people, like the top 10 best places to work, right?
Yeah.
Those are typically places where people can go, feel accepted, feel included, and also feel like they're being poured into, right? Like my company cares so much about me as a person that they actually provided me with having like anti-racism discussion and a framework with which to do that I can do that in the workplace, I can do that outside of the workplace, and that creates a certain satisfaction. So whether it's that company now will probably do better because their employees feel better, they feel like they're a part of something. And so to your point exactly, Winston, even within network marketing, you're creating something within your team, like you're giving them a skill set or something else that they can use. And that's super powerful. It's so powerful in creating connection and community and feeling like you're a part of something that's like bigger than yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And there are many different applications for sure. You know, now there's 2022. We realize that we're in this global market space more than ever, right? You know, um, and we're trying to sell products and services to people that are all over the world. And many times we barely understand their experiences, right? So when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion principles more broadly, it's about, you know, one of the skill sets we get is an appreciation for people other than ourselves, right? What is their story? What is their lived experience? And how does that help me deliver better products and services to them, right? And so within the context of creating, you know, better, you know, a lot of organizations are trying to figure out, okay, you know, what happened to George Floyd? We need to stop and think. You know, some of our employees are saying that this has really affected them. We have no idea why. We need to figure this out. And so it's made us have to have this conversation to say, why is this affecting this person differently than me? And then why did it take this thing to make me feel, you know, and want to do something, right? And as we start to unpack the layers, we realize that, man, we've been thinking and feeling a lot of some of these things for a long time, and they've been affecting us for a long time, and we just haven't had the language, you know, the time, the space. And we've always heard, oh, it's taboo, you can't talk about it here, and you know, and so now we're developing ways to be able to be our whole selves. At our organizations, and thinking about how that affects our organization, how that's good for the, you know, for the organization, and creating products and services again that can speak to a wide variety of people. So there are many different layers. I think Winston, you had a point earlier I wanted to maybe touch on a little bit. I think one of the things in our workspaces is that in our work is that we a lot of times give people the language, the fundamental understanding of how to have these conversations, because we don't understand their organization as well as they do. We don't know how they make their nuts and bolts and how they make their widgets, right? We don't know what the inner workings of their dynamics are as far as their team culture and that kind of thing. But we give them an understanding of some fundamental understanding that then allow them to have a much better, much deeper, much more meaningful and productive dialogue around these difficult things that they've been kind of skirting around for a long time. And you know, and I think we find that to be very, very helpful.
Amazing. You know what I think about in this, and I want to ask two questions. It may push us. Well, we'll see where it goes. One, as you started talking about recognizing that what you guys offer is a service or global product, or it can be marketed globally. I want to ask what you guys, how do you guys look at scaling? You know, what does that look like? But then the other thing that came to mind is, for me, I think of when I worked at a company, they have you go through, and I think it's pretty standard now. It's like it's a virtual, or you do it online, but it's like to learn about like sexual harassment and guidelines around, again, you know, hey, you know, if I don't make a certain comments around Janelle or actually at all, because I can offend someone else who, like, you know, that kind of thing. And I think it's interesting that for me, I wasn't I've never seen it when around race necessarily. You know, I do, some of the questions have something to do with race, like if this, if one of the co-workers happened to be Asian, making a joke that could be insensitive to things like that. But they never really got into, well, how do you have those type of conversations with people?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's just like literally you're answering A, B, and C to not do it.
Mm-hmm.
But let's again, the reality is this is happening in workplaces, right? People come as they are. You know what I mean? You don't flip a switch and all of a sudden, you just shut off these things. And I just think it's interesting that it's almost like a school thing. Like they want you to answer, but we're not having a real conversation about this thing. It's like you're supposed to know not to do it, but how do you tell somebody not to recognize themselves as a race, or you know what I mean? And have certain things within your culture, we're not all black, that kind of thing, right? There's cultural differences. No, that really can play a role and affect. Again, I think in such a broader span, like not just your workplace. This stuff really goes home with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one interesting thing is that when you think about race, I made a comment earlier that it affects everything. I think before I started doing the trainings and sessions, I could probably watch television and imagine I was watching commercials. I would see that there maybe every third commercial I go, oh like they did us wrong right there.
I did that. I do that now.
now it's probably every commercial. I
do that
I
now.
figured out. I'm like, oh
That's a real thing.
So it's always there, right?
Yeah, man.
You mentioned art earlier, right? It's like, well, the art that's gonna be valuable is the one that the rich white guy says is valuable, clearly, right? And so the implications are always there. We just never had an opportunity, or I think we've been socialized with one of the things about our socialization. We've been socialized that you're not supposed to talk about this, right? At all. And then we've also been informed and taught some things that are just not true. And so really unpacking and understanding, James, in one of our sessions, we talked about James Baldwin has a quote that says, the past is all that makes the present coherent, right? And so if we don't understand what's happening now, it's probably because we have no idea what happened 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 200, 300, 40 years beforehand, and what the connection is, right? It's easy for us to say, oh, let's just focus on what's happening now, but we have to really understand what got us here, especially if we're trying to go to a space that is more diverse, more inclusive, more equitable. We really want to think about, okay, how do we design a path forward that gets us there?
Wow.
So how are we doing on time? Ding, 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 ding. All right. I have a question. The thing that resonated with me, one of the things that you said was that how these kinds of conversations can open up a way. It's a muscle, right? Because you're starting to have these types of difficult conversations. Many of us have read a book called Crucial Conversations. I think there are like other versions of that. And like, isn't this a crucial conversation? But it's a muscle, right? It's a muscle. It requires a certain type of vocabulary, a shared vocabulary. And but then like kind of like once you get into this space, it kind of helps you with other areas. So I would love, and I think we're gonna have to do this in overtime, but what I was wondering is like, how have you seen some of those like in my mind, it's like all linked. So like, how have you seen some of what you've been able to build with people transition into like other difficult conversations that have come up? And like, do people talk to you about that? Like, and how would you essentially like, what's like some areas of advice that you would give, right? Like in having these kinds of crucial conversations.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'll start the answer, but I think we probably definitely have to go to overtime for a little bit more deeper conversation. But the crazy thing I'll say is that 10 years ago, you probably would have conversation about race with just close friends, family. You're so many people just didn't talk about it. But beyond your like 1 degree out, they just didn't talk about it. You wouldn't. Now everybody's talking about it. It's everywhere, right? And so the stakes are in that degree even higher, because even though everyone's talking about it, we don't always have shared definition, shared analysis, and Where sometimes, you know, someone's speaking French and you're speaking Italian and someone else is speaking English and you're saying, well, you know, did we get anywhere? You know, what did we order? You know, like,
Right.
and so I think it's a really important time now. I think that as we're starting to really explore what this means, I think I'm excited for what's going to happen from the next generation. I have some really strong thoughts about how hopeful I am for the next generation to come, that we'll be able to have achieved some things for sure.
Well, on that note, we will time out there.
Absolutely.
As we transition to overtime. So thank you so much, CJ. I mean, for what you've provided. This has been an amazing conversation. And I know we're going to continue the conversation in overtime. For those of you that are with us now, drop a fire in the comments, put hashtag value, hashtag say that. let us know, right? Let us know that you found value in this. Let CJ know. We're going to post up again the website so that way you guys know where to find him, so that way you can connect with him and the equity paradigm. And again, if you found value in this, make sure that you like and you subscribe. Make sure you do that. Share this video with others. If you feel like this is something that can help others, please share this, because the more you guys like and subscribe, the more we get into people's feeds, the more people will know about what we do and the value that we're trying to spread for entrepreneurs, to get to create this community that we're building with other entrepreneurs. Know that you're not alone and that there are people like you who are building and trying to make it work. I will go ahead and put in the comments, so anyone who wants to join us in overtime, you can join us on overtime on Patreon. We welcome our community members there to join us there. And gosh, I am just so excited to have CJ and for us to go into overtime to continue the conversation.
No, thank you so much. And thank you for everybody that was on live. We really appreciate you guys. Again, click that link, join us in overtime. You guys are going to love it. CJ is definitely going to go in and bring a little bit more, or go a little bit deeper into this topic. All right, guys.
As always, remember you deserve the good life. Say that.
Have an amazing day, you guys. We'll see you guys next week.